Hi, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda, and this is the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast.
This podcast is all about taking action and creating that badass business abundance and life that you want.
Where we share stories, laughs, wins, and epic fails to show you the whole picture of the entrepreneurial journey.
It's not just unicorns and rainbows, people.
Jump on and follow us through this raw and witty roller coaster,
where we get down and dirty and go behind the scenes of life and entrepreneurship.
Get on it,
get over it,
and get after it.
Hey, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. We are coming up towards the end of 2024. We're not quite there yet, but it feels like we're getting closer and closer with every single day. And today we're going to talk about a rather controversial topic, a topic that gets a little bit of pushback or a lot of pushback in some cases. And that's a little bit around putting in the work. So complaining about not getting the results from the work you didn't do. So as we come towards the end of Q4, what are you complaining about that hasn't been completed? What results did you not get this year? And let's take an honest look at whether or not we did the work to get those results. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, don't complain about the work, the results for the work you didn't do. One of my favorites. It's interesting. Seems like we have this conversation with clients or prospects quite often. And even with ourselves, we've had to call ourselves out on this as well. To say, okay, you wanted X, but what were the actions? What were the 1, 2, 3s that you did? What was the time commitment? What was the energy commitment? What was the effort commitment behind that? And it's a hard reality check, when you're not hitting your numbers, where you're not making the progress, and even when you are, maybe you are moving it, but maybe it's busy work, right? So it's not even just like not doing action, because action doesn't mean productive. Yeah. Another thing here too is, and recently I've had a few conversations, and been experiencing people that they weren't the right people to have the conversation with, is that everything's a big deal. Everything is just so much work of what they're doing. They're doing all the things in their mind, but really all the things aren't happening. So that means the result is that they're not getting as far as what they could. They're not getting as many. We were just talking about signups. So people aren't getting as many signups as they wanted. They're not getting as much, a lot of people do this, and this very well in the fitness side of things. Like they're not slimming out because they're still sneaking cookies in the middle of the night or whatever. Like it's mind-boggling to me when you actually sit back instead of complain and analyze why you're not quite where you want to be or where you need to be, and the cause and effect, and take responsibility for that.
And I think what you just said, you just hit it on the head. Take responsibility and accountability for what you actually put in. And it's so true. And I am absolutely guilty of this. We have had conversations around this many times where you feel like you did so much stuff. Like, why are we not getting there? Why are we not getting there? And then when you actually are honest, truly honest with the actual effort you put in and those action steps you put in towards that final goal, they come up short. And that's really what's happening when you take that serious, honest look and take responsibility, take accountability for your actions in the world. You'll see how it changes and how that ripple effect comes around. And yeah, we see it in fitness. We see it in all sorts of things. And you touched on earlier, like doing all these things, like I'm doing all this stuff, I'm doing all the things, but are you? And I know this is a big joke. I think I made it last year. I think I make it all the time. You have so much to do, and you had time to send me 37 memes on Instagram. And I'm not throwing shade here, because I absolutely will get overwhelmed, and I will use an Instagram meme as a way to give myself a minute, and I'll do it. But I won't use that as an excuse saying that I couldn't get it done if I also did that. If you have time to be completely caught up on every Netflix show that exists in the world, then you probably didn't spend as much time doing XYZ as you thought you did. If you took 17 vacations, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, like, be responsible, like, be accountable to your actions. If you took 17 vacations and you're wondering why you didn't hit your savings goal by the end of the year, well, then you have to think about how you prioritize your spending over the year. And there's lots of things that come into play with this. But ultimately, it's taking responsibility, taking accountability for things, really looking honestly at your prioritization over the year. Because as you say all the time, Lynn, just because a hamster is moving in a wheel and there's lots of motion happening there doesn't mean you're getting anywhere. Hamster's not going across Tour de France there. He's still pedaling away on his little wheel in his little cage with nothing actually getting accomplished.
Stationary.
It is a terrible stationary bike. And it's really, but it takes some serious introspection and really looking at the hard truth of it. And I will 100% readily admit that I did this a lot particularly when I was in my solopreneur world, and I had everything on my shoulders and it's all me. And I never asked for help because God forbid I ever ask for help for anybody, for anything. And then I would wonder why I wasn't getting as far. And it was because I wasn't taking responsibility for my actions in it. And I wasn't taking a really truthful look at what I was doing to progress my business towards the goals I had set for myself. Because there's lots of ways to progress your business, but the work you put in directly reflects at the end of the year, like how much, like you cannot complain about the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do. So I'm just going to flat out say, I want everyone, if you look at your goal sheet, if you look back for whether it was a New Year's resolution or a goal you set in January, look back. If you're not where you want to be, if those are even still your goals, number one, but if you're not where you want to be, why? What was the real reason? And there's always a reason. It's not just the world is against me and XYZ victim. There's a reason and there's a responsibility and a role that you played in that. So what's the role and how can we improve on it? It's not to wallow in your self-pity. It's to learn from your own past mistakes and to see where we can improve and get better and ultimately change the way we do business, even if it's just with ourselves.
Yeah. When you're talking, I was thinking of another quote I use all the time that my coach used to say: you practice how you play how you practice. And if you're not setting the scene for success, and I think we see it a lot more than other maybe professions just because of the work that we do, also with ourselves, but with the work that we do with others in consulting and accountability, sometimes coaching. And, we have all these clients who are setting these goals and having, the dreams, the hopes, and all of this, but they're not setting the scene for success. They're not, because results are tied to the actions that we do. And inaction is an action as well. A bad choice is an action as well. So if you're really, really not setting the scene appropriately and being focused on actions that are driving you towards the results that you want on a conscious level, you're absolutely setting yourself up for failure. And you can have all the right intentions in the world. You can want it so bad, but that does not create the results. It is the absolute, the intentional actions that are being put in the right direction. And another thing is the mindset around it. So many people get this mindset around things, around busy. And I know we've spoke around it a lot. We can't stand the word busy. However, because people are well, I'm busy, I'm this, I'm that. Yeah. Well, just the other day I had 13 meetings in one day. It literally felt like a week. And I would say that was a pretty full. I did cancel the 13th. I just couldn't, I did not have the capacity. It was super late at night. But I would not say that I was busy. I was super efficient. I was super productive that day, which not always with that many meetings am I. But I would not say that I'm busy. And I also had the mindset of, okay, I'm bento boxing these out. This was because of this. This was because of this. This was because of this. This is this is the type of meeting that I need to show up for. And I think it's really important with our mindset and the way that we look at things and the way that we take responsibility. We should be taking responsibility for our stuff, and not for others and not for the things that other people do for us, even if there are employees or partners, that's on that. Like, because otherwise we get into this mindset where we have to control everything. We have everything, kind of what you were saying, like we have everything on our plate. And even though we might not like the word busy, or we don't use that word busy, like it can absolutely stagnate us in a mental capacity, even if we're putting in the actions to be able to hit those results that we want. And it's, I love the human psyche, and I love watching people that I know and that I don't know, that I'm super close with and not so close with, and how they navigate this. And yeah. And when we have those hard conversations, I literally just had one yesterday with one of my clients and say, okay, where are you guys at with your stuff? What have we put into place that you have not put into action? I cannot do it for you. You have to do it. And you guys need to have a hard, honest conversation with what you want next year, and even have a conversation if you want to still continue with this business. Because if you continue to do what you did this year, you're going to continue to not get results. It's crazy.
Absolutely. It is crazy. And it's also really tough love. It's really hard to hear someone, and I know because the first time I don't know if it was you the first person to tell me, or if I told myself, I don't really remember, but it's really hard to have somebody call you out on your bullshit, regardless of what the bullshit is. And when it comes down to looking at your efficiency over the year, looking at your productivity, looking at how you handle your priorities, how you handle your responsibilities, it can be a really horrible, hard time, a hard feeling to look back and realize that you were the one holding yourself back, that it wasn't all these other extenuating circumstances that were the reason why you aren't where you want to be. It was 100% you, that you dropped the ball on your own goals, and that's why you aren't where you want to be. And that's a tough pill to swallow, no matter how self-aware you are, no matter how open to criticism you are. It's a really tough pill to swallow when you realize you're the one holding yourself back.
Yeah.
100%.
I probably was one of the first external people who said that to you, for sure. I mean, but that's one thing I love about our partnership, is that we've always been able to be we're not each other's. I mean, we are each other's hype people, but not in detriment. We will be when it needs to be, but we're also that tough love and that hard, like, call each other out when it also needs to be. And I think I hate to use the phrase lucky that we have that, because it's not that something we don't put work into it. Because of the type of people that we are, we're able to absolutely have that dynamic as well. And we've put work into that. So there's a little bit of like, yeah, we are lucky, but at the same time, we put in a lot of work. There's a few things around the don't expect, because we don't want this to be a bitch fest to you, about like a scold fest to you. Because there are some things that you can look at. First of all is look at your efforts, right? So efforts were everything that we just said. Were they intentional? Was that in the forward kind of movement that you needed? Were those actions put in alignment with the goals and the results, the consistency of it? And I just read a post today, a really good friend posted it, and it was like consistency. I can't remember it fully, but the idea of it was consistency isn't about doing it all the time. It's about doing it, but having agility when you need agility. Consistency is about showing up in the way that you need to show up at that time when you are maybe spread super thin. So it's not always about like copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. It is about the ducks and weaves that come with life, and that ability to be agile, but that consistency, because things happen, a loved one passes, you have a big client that you lose, or a big client that you gain. It could be positive or negative. And so it really is like having that consistency in the best way that you can. And one way in business to help you keep consistency, and you hear Amanda and I talk about this all the time, are SOPs and fundamentals and foundations. Once you have those structured, it's really easy to stay consistent.
Absolutely. I was just having a conversation with someone today about SOPs. But one thing I also, and we talk about, I don't remember which podcast it was that we discussed it on, but I know we've discussed it on the podcast about finding that consistency. And one of the things I say a lot about when it comes to consistency is on the negative side, because we all know that I love to bring up the negatives, is that you can consistently, when you're doing the wrong things, you can get consistently good at doing the wrong things that makes your business worse. You're
Like,
only making your business worse and worse. So one thing we recommend you do, if you're not quite sure where to start or what habits you might have, make a list, like a task journal, almost like what you would do for a food journal. Write down everything that you're doing, ideally for a week at least, to really kind of see what your patterns are. How long is it taking you to do XYZ? How much time are you spending in this task? How much time are you wasting when you suddenly look up and it's been 3 hours and you've been doom scrolling? Because if you're not doing the right things, you're consistently getting better at getting worse. And we want you to get better and to recognize what it is. And it's not always easy to see, because particularly when you have all the things, you're doing so much, you're constantly in motion, you're the hamster on a wheel, you might not see all the things that you're doing. And so if you can write it down and look back and be like, oh yeah, I do spend 7 hours doing that one thing where I could probably hire a VA and they could do it in 30 minutes because it takes me long to do it because I'm not quite sure how to do it, or whatever it is. You can look at those large patterns and you can see the gaps in what you're doing, and you can work to start creating more effective action rather than just being that hamster in a wheel over and over again. So that's one tip, just to kind of see if you're not sure where you're wasting time, if you're not sure what's happening in your schedule and what motions you're putting in, but that aren't really getting any full action. Write it down, take a look honestly, write down when you have that handful of M&Ms at 2 a.m. It's just like a food journal. You're writing down those things that you don't really think about, that by the end of the day, you've kind of forgotten. But if you write it as you go, you'll be able to look back and see patterns that might surprise you when it comes to your productivity and it comes to all the motion you're putting in, because there's a lot that business owners do. Nobody can say that there isn't a ridiculous amount of stuff we do over the course of a day. And there's always room for improvement, and there's room for more efficiency. There's room for more productivity. There's room to make changes that can ultimately, with consistent change and with the small movements over time, can make huge differences in your business and in your sanity by the end of the year.
no, absolutely. To add to what you just said, and I know you've also heard, if you've listened to our podcast, I know I've also used this example before, is that on top of that, what Amanda just told you to do a tracker to see where your efficiencies lie, your consistencies, right? And your efficiencies. And so then you analyze it, like, is in alignment to the bigger purpose, but also you bento box it. And I had this client one time who was like super overwhelmed by all the meetings that she was doing in a day. And she would bucket them into the 1-to-1 bucket. And when I made her do this, like, I actually, we were able to break this down on one of our calls. And I was like, okay, let's look at your schedules. She pulled up her schedule. I was like, okay, we went meeting by meeting. Is this a sales meeting? Is this a get to know you meeting? Is this a prospect meeting? Is this just a casual meeting? And essentially what we did is we really were able to see like how many sales meetings she had, how many current client meetings she had, and be able to bento box it. And why that was benefit is because she thought she was doing all this effort to build her business, but she wasn't. Because she was exhausted at the lack of results that she was getting. And this is not just with meetings, this is with all of your efforts. When you bento box it and have a really honest look at it and take accountable for like those actions, accountability for those actions, like you're able to shift your mindset, but also your energy, because a lot of times people are complaining like, I've done all this stuff. Yeah, you've done a lot of things, and not saying that they aren't efforts that needed to be done, but because you're putting everything in one pile, you can't recognize the actual efforts that you've done for the what you wanted, right? And so a few more things, pointers, is like, kind of going on that, is actually get really clear on like the data stuff, right? So versus like the mindset and the idea or the thought or the dreams, make decisions based on data. So exactly what Amanda just told you to do, that gives you raw data and really what your week or 2 weeks are, so you can make changes. Look at your goals, and like analyze, break it, like reverse engineer it, breaking it down. And, how much time is it actually going to take? Is that in your calendar? It's committing to the process versus the results, I think, is what I'm getting at. And a lot of times people are sold into the results, but they're not committed into the process. And some feel that they are, but maybe they're not doing it in the right alignment of the direction that they need to go. Some have never even thought of it in that way. And it makes it disconnected. But those that are getting results, or honest, because sometimes you're still not going to get the results. Like Amanda and I have had many things where we have put in the work. We've actually like rolled up our sleeves, our teams rolled up the sleeves, and we didn't hit the numbers that we wanted to. And then we analyze, we're like, okay, where did we drop the ball? And actually this last year, 2024, like we had some really successful launches and we had some not so successful launches. And then we were able to be really honest, like where the disconnect was, even though it felt like we were going through the process. And so it is absolutely committing to the process, like 100%, not letting other things, other businesses, other people distract you from that commitment to the process that you are. Because one foot in is not helping anybody. The other foot, like if you think about it, when you are in a canoe and you have one foot in your canoe and everybody's paddling, but one foot's out, it's dragging you back. It's like holding you back. It's not streamlining you. And, Amanda and I have struggled with this personally, because we both have other businesses, we have other things going on, and we've had to have hard conversations with each other and ourselves about like, we need to like be committed or like do something different with certain aspects of our business. And so it's not even just those that aren't getting the results that need to have these conversations with themselves. Even those that are getting the results need to have these conversations with themselves, because they could get better results. It could be in less time. It could be in less effort, or more fruitful, if you will, at the end, or higher return on investment, ROI. But yeah, don't expect results and stop complaining about what you didn't get for the results you didn't put in, or the work that you didn't put in. It's just like insane.
This is the time of year that we hear this kind of conversation, these kinds of thoughts coming up a lot. Absolutely. Not just with business owners, but just, like we said, fitness things, all sorts of things can revolve around this idea of being upset that you didn't get the results when you didn't put in the work. And it's not always the work isn't always so easy to understand, because there's a lot of work you can put in that really isn't the true work. You can do busy work all day long. I can do 400 million social media posts, and I can complain over and over, like, oh, I need to build my social media. I need to build my social media. Well, maybe you just need to sell better to the people you currently have, rather than trying to do an action that isn't getting you anywhere, or trying to sell something when you can't even sell to the people you have. So there's lots of things that aren't really necessarily putting in the right work. So even if you are getting some kinds of results, as Lynn said, you could be getting better results if you really take a second to analyze the work that you're putting in. Is it the right work? We don't want you guys to work forever for nothing, for just ho-hum results. We want you to put in the work that you love and get the results that you love. We want both sides of that. I don't think there's anybody in the world who doesn't want that kind of result. So this is your tough love reality check, wake up call, end of Q4 2024. Don't get upset for the results you didn't get for the work you didn't do. It's time to take a look at what you've done this year. What are the actions you put in? What are the steps that you're putting in right now to get those results, and be honest with what you're doing? Because the only person you're hurting is yourself.
Yeah. Dig beyond the surface level efforts of which you've been doing, and really look like, yeah, have you truly been putting in the work? Would you be proud of that if you really were looking at it through a different lens? And yeah, I love this. I mean, we say this all. I say that. I know I say it. It feels like, well, I don't.
We do say it.
They love it. And it's a bit jarring sometimes when you say it to clients, but at the end of the day, it's truth. And it's coming from love. Like, you hired me to help you. So I'm not your yes person. I'm going to call you out on it. You're not putting in the work. If this podcast resonated with you, or if you know somebody else who needs to hear this and get a swift kick in their tush, please hit subscribe and forward this on to your friend or friends that need to hear this any time of the year, because we want you to be successful. We want you to hit those markers and those goals and those KPIs. However, it does take effort. It does take the right action. It does take consistency. It does take ownership and accountability and honesty and a few other things. But yeah, so share, like, comment, all that good stuff.
All right, my friends. Until next time, get after it.
All right, everyone. It's not enough to just listen.
Now you've got to put it into action.
We are so excited to see what you do next.
If you enjoyed our show, please leave us a review on iTunes.
And to find out more about what we're doing, visit us at thepursuitofbadasserie.com.